I got a great surprise, especially for you, Brian.
Better not be another airplane.
Well, this is a 1914 Model T. This was built for Walt Disney. Back in the 50s, they actually had Model Ts that they used in the parade. They put the characters in, except this one was special built using engineering from the early 50s. He built a Model T that would do wheelies. It would go up in the air and it goes right around in front of a crowd. It was supposedly restored. I looked at the picture. I mean, what I can see, it's no 100-point restoration. I did get a hold of the nice lady that owns it. It's obvious she don't know much about it because she had it restored and made it black. I don't think she knows what she has. I'm not gonna lie to her. I am gonna tell her what the car is.
Call it fate or destiny, but Brian is also on the chase for another vehicle from Walt's Magic Kingdom.
Oh, yeah.
That's the double-decker bus from Disney. They only made 6 of those.
This looks like about a 1910.
It's actually a 1980s. It was designed off of a 1920s double-decker bus from New York. So it's an old look, an old design, but it's Disney, you know, Disney magic, and it's on a modern chassis. So anybody could drive it, you know, it's all modern.
So this, it can be driven anywhere. You can use it around the museum here?
Yep, you can use it indoors. It's run on propane.
Wow.
You know, this Disney bus is extra special because it wasn't one of the transportation buses. This was a show. This is what was actually paraded on with all the characters. I want this bus, and I'm gonna get this bus.
While Jay gets an appraisal on his brother's masterpiece, it's time for Brian to bring home one magical ride.
It's a beautiful bus, isn't it?
Are you Paul?
I'm Paul.
Hi, I'm Brian.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. I tell you, it's much more impressive in person than the photos.
Yeah, the pictures didn't show the height, and the color wasn't exactly right.
Yeah, I remember going to Disney and seeing one of these double-decker buses, and I knew they didn't build very many of them, and that they don't use them anymore today, so I figured they gotta be out there somewhere. Well, that led me to Paul, who restored this thing over the past 2 years, and now I'm here to buy it from him. And he lives right here in Whiting. Is this the one that toured in Epcot Center with all the characters on it?
Yeah.
I remember that one because I brought my 2 kids there. It was driving by with all the characters on it, thinking, wow, that thing is awesome. That'd be really cool to have.
Well, my grandfather worked for Disney.
Oh, yeah?
And he drove this, or one similar to it. And when my parents would send me to Florida for vacation, I'd stay with my grandfather, and I used to ride on it all the time.
Oh, yeah, you're
That's
lucky.
why getting it was something really special. The Disney bus was used in Disneyland and Epcot Center to haul the characters around to move them from one location to another because they had no basic area to put the characters at that time.
The restoration's incredible. You know, the gold work and the brass. Is that real brass?
That's real brass. Took a lot of time and a lot of money.
This bus was very expensive at the time it was built. It's brass, it's solid metal. The paint job alone is worth a lot of money. My father and I were really pleased when we got it finished. It was one of those times where you just stood back and looked and said, ah.
I'm guessing north of $100,000 for the restoration.
Close.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we don't do the restorations. I'm glad you bought it from Disney and did all the work, and I can just cut you a check for it, and I don't have to wait 2 years to enjoy it. I can enjoy it today. Bob Gurney designed these off of a 1920s double-decker New York bus, but built them on a modern chassis. The one I'm looking at today was built in the 1980s off of Gurney's original design. This doesn't belong in your garage.
Well, no, technically it belongs in a museum.
No, it belongs in my museum. Yeah, and the bus is awesome. What are you looking to get out of it?
$250,000.
$250,000? Yeah, I'd have to say that's a fair number for what it is. You know, there's only 6 of these things ever built, so $250,000 for a one of 6 made, which who even knows where the other 5 are if they even still exist. I'm very happy with that price.
Brian is taking this Disney bus back to Illinois, but he might have good reason to return to Whiting.
We're only about an hour and a half away from Whiting, Indiana. I cannot believe I've never even been to this town. It's a gorgeous town.
Whiting has one of the biggest festivals in Indiana, the Pierogi Fest, the last full weekend in July.
I'm known to put down a few pierogies. Tell me more.
250,000 people hit this town in 3 days.
Oh, wow.
For Polish.
Now you got me in the mood for pierogies. Is there any place that sells them today?
There's a couple places in town that sell them, and they sell beer.
Why don't we get a couple pierogies, a cold beer, and we'll do the paperwork, and I'll get you a check.
Keeping this bus for my father and I and nobody else being able to enjoy it, it really isn't fair. I'm glad that Brian's interested in it, and I think at the Volo Museum, it'll be a perfect fit.
My dad's gonna be happy. I don't know if this bus is actually gonna fit in the museum, but it will definitely fit well with what we have in the museum.
Brian's trip to Whiting is a double-decker success. While the boys finish up in Indiana, Greg has arrived in California at the residence of Eleanor Perry, owner of the Dizzy Lizzy Ford Model T. And even with 50+ years of experience, Greg feels like a kid at the most magical place on earth.
Mrs.
Hi.
Perry, so nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you, Greg.
I can't believe what's in front of me here. The holy grail of Disney cars, the Dizzy Lizzy. I think I found the original that was built for Mr. Disney himself.
The car belonged to Mrs. Perry's late husband and was the centerpiece in his impressive Disney memorabilia collection.
Actually, my husband spent a lot more time with the car than he spent with me.
While Mrs. Perry wishes to pay respects to her late husband's property, she's interested in selling and has no idea how special this Dizzy Lizzy truly is.
Greg called me and asked if I were interested in selling the car. My husband loved it so much, but more people would see it and enjoy it if it were at a museum.
Greg is more than happy to give Mrs. Perry a history lesson on her late husband's pride and joy.
This is no regular Model T. They used Model Ts in the parades, but Walt wanted the wow factor. He wanted something where people drop their mouths, get all their cameras, take the pictures, and this was the car. The unique engineering in this car is a one of a kind. He moved the wheelbase all the way forward and put in 2 handles. Each one is a separate brake. I mean, it was ingenious. There's actually not very many people would even know how to drive these. I mean, I'm sure you don't have a set of instructions on how to drive this thing. He would get the car going at perfect timing. He'd pull both levers back, and that's what brought the car up. If you can hold it up in the air, you can let go of one of the levers, and it would start to spin in a circle. However, what keeps the car from going up and up and up and not over? He put a little wheel in the back so it wouldn't go any further than that wheel.
Mrs. Perry never showed interest in the car while her husband was alive, but she's impressed by Greg's passion and love for this modified Model T.
I don't know anything about cars. It was one area where my husband and I were on completely different levels. I think he would be very pleased if he knew that his car would be seen by many people, and I think I'm going to sell it.
Greg's enthusiasm is enough to seal the deal.
We have a gallery with all the Disney one-of-a-kind items that was used in parades and in their movies and that, and this is something that all the people need to see. So let's go do the paperwork.
Okay.
There's no better place for the general public to see this than in our huge Disney display. When I get this car back to Volo, I cannot wait to learn how to drive it. I'm gonna make this thing go up in the air, and I am going to spin them around, hopefully with my sons in the backseat. They're gonna get the biggest thrill out of this.
Greg Grams is bringing a rich slice of Walt Disney's world back home to Volo, Illinois. Greg has returned with the Dizzy Lizzy, and he can't wait to take her for a spin.
Jay, you know where your brother's at? The Holy Grail just pulled in the parking lot over here. We're unloading it. I know how to drive a Mercedes. This is kind of like it. There'll be no problem.
Although it's not the smoothest ride, the boys are ecstatic for Dad and his new toy.
Pretty exciting day for my father. His Dizzy Lizzy was delivered today, and now I know why they call it Dizzy.
Volo Auto Museum now has 2 of Walt Disney's magical motor vehicles under its roof.
Whether we win or lose, it's another good week for the house. Volo House of Cars.